Yeah, I've been pretty frustrated. I'm not gonna lie. Everything that has transpired up until this point is just been disappointing and frustrating. I've wanted to continue my career here. I've created my life here. My wife and I have bought our first home here, so this has been somewhere where I've always wanted to be. And
Terry McLaurin yesterday, if you were listening to the show, we ended up carrying his press conference, which he held after an Eastern Motors commercial shoot. We did not have a chance to respond to what we heard, but I will do that shortly. Good morning, everybody. Joe Theismann is going to be on the show today at 11 a.m. We'll certainly get Joe's thoughts on the Terry McLaurin contract situation. The ESPN coaches, scouts, execs list is out for wide receivers this morning. I won't bury the lead on that. Terry was not in the top 10. I thought yesterday, Max and I talked about that. I think we both thought there was a chance he would be in the top 10, even though he was 22nd last year. He was way outside the top 10 last year. Wasn't even an honorable mention wide receiver and was like the third or fourth receiver listed among the also receiving votes. And they put those in order so you can kind of determine the vote count after the top 10. But I thought there was still a chance after having, a really good season, his best, his first with a legitimate quarterback, that he might make it into the top 10. I said somewhere between 8 and 10. He ended up not in the top 10. A lot of great receivers, as we have talked about. If you watch the rest of the league, and not just our team, the depth at this position around the league. However, he was the first receiver listed on the honorable mention list of the receivers not to make the top 10. He was the first on the honorable mention list, which means he's ranked 11th according to NFL coaches, NFL front office execs, GMs, etc., and NFL scouts. So a good quarterback does make a difference because he moved up 11 spots from where he was last year. We'll get to that list coming up in the show, and I will definitely respond to what Terry said yesterday. Real quickly, Mackenzie Gore, solid last night in his one inning in the All-Star game. James Wood worked the count full in his one at bat before grounding out. The game went to a home run swing off. I will be honest, I had long checked out before that began. But I guess it's the equivalent of like a hockey shootout or penalty kicks in soccer. And Kyle Schwarber, I guess, won it for the National League. I will say this about the All-Star game last night. Number one, I loved that the players were playing in their own team's uniforms. Old school. I love that. That looks much better for the All-Star game. And then Clayton Kershaw mic'd up was phenomenal. He is one of my favorite athletes in sports. He's got a decent season going. I mean, a lot of people thought he was done. Be interesting to see if, he gets some playoff opportunities come October. Other than that, the uniforms and Clayton Kershaw and watching James Woods at bat and Mackenzie Gore pitch, I was flipping around last night. There was a lot going on last night, NBA Summer League, not really. Let's get to Terry. All right, because if you watched it, read it, listened to it, he's not happy. He's actually more than not happy. He's hurt. He's hurt by this process. You can tell that he is frustrated, disappointed, and, he's feeling the hurt, of a guy that's been through the wars in this organization with some of the worst people you could ever imagine having to work for. And in the first season with the new group, really the second season, but the first real season with the new group, there is a standoff in contractual talks and negotiations. I want to play a lot of what he said, a bunch of the cuts before I give you my reaction to it, because not everybody heard it. And if you've read it, some of it, needs tone. You need to hear him. But I will say this before we start to play some of the cuts. His people, and I don't know if that's his agent or if he's got a PR person, but they did not do him any favors yesterday. That was entirely too long and too repetitive. Washington's PR group, from what I understand, was not a part of this thing. And whoever it was, whether it was his agent or somebody else, did a crappy job in managing this press conference. This should have been 10 minutes max. He had a script, if you noticed, and it just became repetitive and annoying, to be honest with you. From my standpoint, he would have come off much better had that been organized by somebody who knows what they're doing. And he did not have that assistance yesterday. They did not do him, in my opinion, any favors. 10 minutes, tell us how hurt you are, how disappointed you are, how frustrated you are. Pitch yourself a little bit. He oversold for 35 minutes and move on. And it would have been perfect. I was sitting here and I think I said to Max at one point, this is going way too long. Whoever is there on his behalf needs to cut it off now. But they didn't. They just let it going. In fact, we had to bail finally on it because they said 2 more questions, and there were many more than 2 more questions. But anyway, let's play some of the cuts that we have from Terry. There are a lot of them. We can't play all of them because, again, there were about 17, 18 of them in a 35-minute plus press conference. And his answers are lengthy at times, very lengthy, like a couple of minutes plus at times. But if you didn't hear it or you haven't read it, I do want you to hear it, and I want you to hear the tone. This was Terry talking about there has to be discussions. There needs to be active discussions in a negotiation. He had said that the team and his representatives hadn't talked in a month. Here's what he said.
Well, I think, there has to be some active discussions, what I mean? Like I said, we haven't talked in over a month, and obviously with camp around the corner, it's becoming a little bit of crunch time. And, obviously you want to be in a position where you're building to what we did last year. And Jaden and I continue to build along with the offense. And that was the thing, before I took a step back, it was things were going great on the field. And, the connection and the offense and the energy was just amazing. And so to see where it was then and where it's at now is definitely disappointing. So I don't necessarily know what happens next, but without any progressive discussions, it's kind of hard to see how I step on the field. So, I'm just trying to take it day by day, honestly. And I know the value that I bring. And again, I understand that there's just a whole business and things like that, but I know that I'm going to continue to play at a high level. The Lord has blessed me to stay healthy up until this point. I haven't missed a game in 5 years. I haven't missed practices. I block, I play full game, you know what I mean? And so I take extreme care of my body. Anybody in that building knows that whether it's rehab, off the field, I invest a lot of time and money into my body, and I'm going to continue to do that so I could be the best that I can when I step on the football field. So I can't really speculate what happens next. Again, I just got to take things day by day, stay in contact with my agent, and hopefully that we can have some sort of talks that are progressive. But if not, then, then you have to take steps from there.
So that was, a long answer. You can tell, he's frustrated. He wants the sides to be there. He mentioned that he does, I don't know if it was in that bite, but he mentioned that he does want to play here. Look, we all like Terry. We all respect Terry. There isn't any fan that I know of that has it out for Terry McLaurin. He's been one of the most likable players of the last 25 years for this franchise. And what he had to endure, we understand. And he was still a good player, enduring, all of the investigations and all of the allegations and all of the, disgusting stuff that was going on, with ownership, et cetera. And he was just, doing his job and being a leader. Terry is first rate. He's first class. Everybody understands that. And he's a really good player. What you'll notice in a lot of these sound bites is, in addition to him being frustrated and disappointed and puzzled, confused at one point, he says, he's pitching himself. For me, he doesn't need to pitch himself. We know he blocks. We know what he is off the field. We know what he is on the field. We know he's, up there, if not number one in contested catch rate. But he wanted, you can tell he's feeling it. Like, I'm not appreciated by these people. And so let me tell you what I've done. This was him on how he'll approach training camp.
If teams don't progress, do you know how you'll approach camp?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I haven't decided that yet. I'm trying to take things day by day, and I think that's the disappointing part, where I was hoping up until this point things would clear up a lot more than they have, and so I haven't made that decision yet, and I'm just going to see how the rest of this week goes and take it day by day and go from there.
He'd be best served showing up for training camp and holding in. He probably should have done that during minicamp. He should have probably held in during mandatory minicamp and saved himself $104,000. I think that was, in essence, what he'll be fined for missing minicamp. That is how it's handled these days. I would assume and I would hope that his agent is sharp enough to make sure, this is an agent that doesn't have a lot of big clients, just so everybody understands. Terry's pretty much one of his biggest clients. And so hopefully he gets the advice to hold in and not get fined $50K a day if we get to that point on Tuesday. This is another really long answer, but I want to play it because you'll see he kind of twists it to something that I want you to hear at the very end. But he was asked about the Garrett Wilson contract, which we talked about yesterday. If you missed it, Garrett Wilson, the Jets receiver, who came in 10th, by the way, I think on the list of wide receivers on the ESPN rankings. Garrett Wilson signed a deal, an extension that won't even kick in for a couple of years. He's 24 years old, but it'll pay him $32.5 million average annual, but $90 million guaranteed, fourth highest guaranteed contract in NFL history. I said yesterday, these are two different situations. I think it's apples and oranges. Garrett Wilson is 24 years old and does look like, talent-wise, that he could end up being in that very, very high-level elite category. But just the age alone is a major differentiator. But this was Terry, and he'll get to some other things as part of this long answer, but this was him talking about Garrett Wilson's contract and whether or not it's, defined the market, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, Garrett Wilson deserves what he was paid. I know I'm a little biased being a Buckeye, but he's a great player, and he brings a lot to his team, and he's fought through adversity as well. And I feel like that his team, not only from past regime, but the new regime that they have now, they honor and they see that, and they see what he brings to the team, and they compensate him as such. And so I can't really speculate on how that necessarily affects me. He's different than I am, but at the end of the day, like, what top receivers are compensated in today's NFL, wide receiver ones, I feel like I'm that. And I feel like that has displayed itself not only just this cycle of receivers who have signed, but last year, and I know I'm in that category. And so it's just a matter of seeing if it makes sense for myself and if the team feels like it makes sense for them. But, it's hard to say, like, how that transpires from here. But I know I'm deserving of what I'm asking for, and I'm willing to stand firm on that. And you just kind of got to see where it goes from there. That they feel how they feel, and I feel how I feel. You hope you can come to some sort of understanding and common ground. I'm not a combative person, but I am someone who's going to stand on my worth and know what I bring to a team, not because of, I feel that way. It's because what I've proven year and year and year, and what I know I will continue to prove, Lord willing, to keep me healthy as I've been. And, the tough part is just missing the time and feeling like you've missed out on building with your teammates and your quarterback and the new additions. And, each team and each year is different. So when I feel like, I'm a missing piece of that, I feel like that definitely affects the team, and hearing from my teammates and see how they feel. And they're confused and as well. So it's just not a lot of clarity. At the end of the day, I just want clarity. If they don't feel like I'm part of their future, then okay, just tell me that. I'm a grown adult. I can handle hard truths. What I've been through in my life, I've definitely been through tough things, been through adversity, been through situations where people may not have saw my value, and that's okay. But somebody will, and I'm gonna continue to give them my all, whoever feels that way.
Long answer, but you can tell again at the end, if I'm not part of the future, tell me, and he, wants to be paid. Look, he's of course a number one wide receiver, and he's in the top third of number one wide receivers. One of the things I wanted to mention, and I didn't yet before we started to play all this sound, unless I've missed it, we still don't have any clear-cut reporting on what he's asking for and what the team's willing to pay. Ian Rappaport, I think yesterday, did report that he wants a deal that is north of $30 million a year. And, if it's 31 or 32, like I've said, I think it's in the 30 to 32 range, somewhere around there, with 60 to 70 guaranteed, something like that. But not much more, in my opinion. But we don't, right, Max? We don't have anything definitive from any reporting that says Terry and his agent are asking for this, the team's offering this. This is the divide.
Yeah, I don't really recall anybody coming out with a set specific number. I think there was some report, not I won't want to say report, but like rumors going around that like 28 or something like that. But all these deals that have gotten done, I'm sure that number's gone up. So we've always guessed like 33 would probably get it done, but yeah, no clear cut reporting yet.
So he was asked if it's surprising that a deal hasn't gotten done, considering the, great season, the good vibes of last year. Here's what he said.
That you're here.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's not even just money definitively. It's
Yeah.
other aspects. Yeah.
Definitely. It's obviously the compensation, but it's kind of like the confusion. All year you feel like you're a part of something. You earned the right to be a captain. You were selected by your teammates and coaches and honored of that. Throughout the season, through the ups and the downs, through the growing process of, a new offense, a new coaching staff, a young quarterback, all these things. And I just tried to lead with the right way. I didn't complain. Things didn't go my way. Or we had tough stretches of time. I was knee deep into it with everybody. And coming into the playoff stretch, I know I put my best foot forward on and off the field. And so when you have that type of production, when you know how people value you and see you and have told you to your face, and then you see how it's progressed up to this point, that's very disappointing. You feel a little bit confused. And so at this point, I'm just trying to get some clarity on that. Just shoot it to me straight, honestly. But I know what I bring to the table, and I know what I'll continue to bring if given the opportunity. And so, that's that's the disappointing part, because you thought it was going to go one way and now you're here. So it's like, how'd that happen? And again, is big business in the NFL. But also, when a player proves who they are over a course of time, and it's not just myself, but just in general of NFL players as a whole, when you've proven who you are, you want that to be honored. You want that to be respected. You want that to be valued. And my value is so much more than a dollar amount. And that's how I feel about myself. But I'd be remiss to not acknowledge that in our business, the dollar amount is attached to someone's value. And I just want that to be reflective of who I am.
At one point during this, and it wasn't necessarily there, but he acknowledged that, it's not about what you've done. It's about what you can continue to do. I've talked about this a lot over the years whenever we've gotten into these conversations about contract negotiations. You don't go in and tell your employer to pay you for what you've done. You go in there and you tell your employer that you deserve, X because of what you're about to do. Look, there are different, situations in every negotiation. And in this situation, what's working for him is they're in a window where they want to win a Super Bowl, and they're trying to win a Super Bowl. And number two, He's such a popular player among fans and, we believe certainly among the players on the team for sure, that you don't want to treat him disrespectfully, or you don't want the perception to be that you treated him disrespectfully during the process. But you don't get compensated, 99 times out of 100 for what you've done. It's what you're going to do. And he pitches himself, and you heard him pitching himself again there. We know what he is. We know what he is on the field, and we know what he is off the field. I think on the field, there's definitely a case to be made that it can get better, certainly in the short term. Last year was year one with the first legitimate quarterback he's played with. What's year two going to be like? Especially with another threat on the field in Deebo Samuel. This was him answering a question about, did the team indicate discussions would progress?
Definitely. And that was a big reason why I came, in 2022, like that was a completely different situation. But, that during that time, like I left very early because the communication just wasn't there. And so when I came up into this offseason program of wanting to build on what we did last year, first and foremost, and be with my teammates, like that was my intention, and feeling everybody in the building knew how engaged I was. But also there's a business side and component to it. And when you've been communicated that you want to get a deal done, you want to progress, and those aren't happening, like, frankly, like actions do speak louder than words. And that's the same that goes for me. Like if I go out and say, I want to be this player, I want to do this and do that, but my habits and my actions don't reflect behind that, then people are going to be looking at me sideways. And so I felt I led with the best foot forward. And, after that kind of wasn't progressing the way that we would have liked, I just felt I needed to take a step back. And that was the disappointing part. But I got to look out for myself as well. Like, I have a family, I have my wife and future kids at some point. And, I want to honor them with my value as well. And I know what I bring to the table. And so that's kind of how it got to this place where I was under understanding that things were going to progress, and they just haven't. And that's disappointing. And, on the heels of camp, it's kind of like, what now? And so I just want clarity, honestly. And we'll see where it goes from here. So, the deadlines obviously come up, and, we'll see where it goes from there. But without any progressive talking, without any communication, it's kind of just sits here like it is.
All right. And then this last one I'm going to play is the follow-up to that. What it got specific. Like, what is the actual disconnect with the team? Here's what he said.
What is the disconnect as you see it? Is it just, beyond how they're treating you, the tone perhaps, is it just money? Is it your age? I know that's been mentioned.
Yeah.
What do you see as the disconnect?
I'll try to keep the specifics of it between, my agent and the team. But, I think there is a disconnect of the value of what I bring to the table and how that applies to not only the fair market deal and the fair market value, but what I've proven up into this point and what I still know I can do at a very high level. And just speaking to the point of, you bringing up age, like obviously that is a part of the NFL. Father Time is undefeated. But I think it's unfortunate that a general data point, not just for myself, but in general, is just used and not by a case-by-case basis. In my case, I've been blessed by the Lord and the actions I take to take care of my body. I've never had a major surgery in my entire career. Thank God for that. And on top of the work that I put in. But also, I haven't missed a game in 4 or 5 years. And I don't miss practice. I play every game. And so who's to say coming off this last season, I won't continue to play at a high level? I believe that. I truly do. And I know I'm going to put the work in to continue to do that at a high level and be bought in and be unselfish and be the guy that I know I've been. And to be quite frank with you, like, even when it comes to guys who are approaching 30, like my case is different, not only from a health standpoint, but this is only going to be my 7th year. A lot of people may not know my story, but at Ohio State, I really didn't play a lot my first 2 years. There's not a lot of tread on my tires. This is the first year we made a deep playoff run. You know what I mean? And I've been extremely healthy through all of that. And so to just, I'm not under the understanding that 30 just applies to me. I'm not dismissing that completely. There are data points that support that. But how come it's not okay to honor and see, okay, this may be a different case. And based on what he's proven and showing no signs of deterioration, like, I feel like that should be acknowledged as well. And so in general, you hope that there's a case by case basis and not a group thinking of, hey, this is this age group, and they fit in this age group, so this is how we're going to treat them. I don't think that's quite right. It's the business. It depends on how each organization and front office see it. So that's kind of how that is. But 30 ain't old. What I mean? People making it seem like I need to start getting fitted for a walker and a cane. What I mean? No disrespect. What I mean? Because but with age comes wisdom. What I mean? And I think my game is going to continue to mature in a great way as I go out through the course of the end of my career. And I don't think that's right now. I don't think that's near. And my ability to make catches at the catch point, people call it contested catches. I call it winning at the catch point. You know what I mean? I think that'll continue to stay. My speed, I still am a 4.3 guy. I'm the same guy just in January, was able to take a slant in the NFC Championship game in a screen for a touchdown. I don't think that changes in 6 months, especially without no major injuries. And so, I know that was a long drawn out answer, but I just wanted to kind of, address that standpoint. But the specifics of the negotiations, I want to keep, in-house as much as possible, but just speaking to the point of age and things like that. And I kind of.
Something hit me in that answer. It's the second time I've heard it, but something just occurred to me, and I'm going to share it with you when we come back. Because he definitely was talking age as in, maybe this is part of it in the negotiations. Yeah, you're not, Amon-Ra St. Brown when we gave him that money in Detroit, Lance Newmark and Brandon Sosna. So very interesting answer there. I'll tell you what I was thinking as I was listening to that when we come back, and then I'll give you my overall thoughts on this situation. Joe Theismann will join us at 11. If you want to weigh in, we'll open up phone lines in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes at 301-230-0980. Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980, the team980.com. You can also watch us on our Team 980 YouTube page. When you get there, subscribe to it and hit the like button.
Is there like a point of no return?
I'm not going to really speculate on that yet. Obviously, where it stands now, it's not great. It's not good at all. And without any progression, then you have to take steps based off of where you're at. There's a hope that I do want to continue to play here, and I do want to be a part of what's being built and what's going to be built. But at the same time, you want to be valued by the front office and the ownership group and things like that. And, it's just past just the words of it. It's, the actions behind it. And I feel like I've proven who I am and who I'm going to continue to be, And so, at some point, I guess you can say there's a point of no return. I don't think it's at that now, but there's time is kind of ticking.
Yeah. He said too, I think in the follow-up there, if I missed it there, he said, it's not great right now. Because I wrote that quote down after that question. That was JP Finley asking the question. So real quickly, I wanted to just share the thought I had when he gave that answer where he was talking about age, and 30 isn't old, he's not walking around with a walker. And that, he pitched very hard on, age shouldn't be a part of this discussion. It certainly was emphasized enough to make me believe that this may be part of the divide, right? But he pitched that, age means nothing, less wear and tear because he didn't play as much in college. He doesn't see, being able to take that, wide receiver bubble screen to the house in a playoff game in Detroit changing anytime soon. Nor do I. But it did occur to me as he was talking about age, because this is something that's been a part of the conversation for a while now. We knew that there was a sort of tricky nature to this contract extension because he was entering age 30 season. And, how was he going to see himself? Because he's not elite, but he's really good. Really good. Lance Newmark, the assistant general manager, and Brandis Sosna, the salary cap guy for this franchise, both came from Detroit, where, among others, getting deals done with Penei Sewell and getting deals done with Jared Goff. They got a deal done before they left Detroit with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, when they signed the deal with him, the extension with him, he was 24. Last year was his age 25 season. But the deal essentially was a 4-year, $120 million deal, 77 guaranteed. Okay, so $30 million a year for Amon-Ra St. Brown with $77 million guaranteed, entering his age 25 season when the contract extension last year took effect. I know this is going to piss some of you off. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a better receiver than Terry McLaurin, okay, in every way, shape, and form. He has had 3 straight seasons of more than 100 catches. He's had 3 straight seasons of 1,100 plus yards, 1,500 plus yards, and 1,200 plus yards. And he's 25. 3 straight Pro Bowls, 2 first-team All-Pro selections. Okay? I like Terry. I don't think Terry's that far away from Amon-Ra. I don't. I've been an Amon-Ra fan for a while, going back to when the Lions, when he got there in 21 and they sucked. All right. I think I don't think he's in the Chase Jefferson category, but he's at the very top of the list of the receivers that come next. Where did he finish on this exec list? I didn't even look. He's got to be in the top 10, right?
Amon-Ra, I think he finished
sixth.
Yeah, a sixth.
Sixth. I definitely would have had him in the top 10. I mean, he was way up there last year, right? He was 7th last year. So, they're looking at Terry and they're saying, and I understand that deal was done a year and a half ago. It's a year and a half later. Price goes up, et cetera. But Amon-Ra was 24 when he signed the deal, and he got $30 million a year and 77 guaranteed, a much younger player, and you could certainly argue a better player. So if Terry's asking for more than that, the 2 guys that did the Amon-Ra St. Brown deal, they're probably saying, wait a minute, what are we doing here? Like, he's not worth that. We just gave Amon-Ra this, and he's a better player, and he's 5 years younger. Anyway, just the thought I had as I was listening to that answer, and he focused so much on age. All right. If you want to weigh in, phone lines are open 301-230-0980. We'll do a lot of calls on the Terry situation. It is the number one situation with our team right now. Now, there is some, there was a stadium deadline yesterday. But we know that I think the team can withstand maybe a few more weeks for the city council. We'll see what happens there. But right now, as we are less than a week away from veterans reporting for training camp, this is the number one story. Let me just start with this. I'm a Terry McLaurin fan. I know some of you don't believe that I am. I watch the league. Many of you do. Many of you don't. And I know that he is very good. But I also know that there are 8, 9, 10 guys that I would prefer and I would take over him. But they're not available. We have him. He's great. He was phenomenal last year with Jaden Daniels. I want him back. And I do think, and I'll cut to the chase here, I do think that a deal will get done. I hope it gets done before Tuesday, but I think it'll get done at some point. And Terry will be a part of the team this year on a new contract. If he isn't and they don't get it done, he is under contract, and it certainly would not benefit him to hold out. Now, could he try to publicly force a trade? He could. The team's not trading Terry McLaurin at this point. With 1 year left on his deal and him wanting to get paid, they're just not going to get enough back for him. It's that situation where when you're trading a player that also a team that's acquiring him has to pay that player, it reduces the compensation. They're not trading him. I can't imagine they would trade him. So let me begin with this, and I've already said it. I like Terry. I want Terry, and I think Terry will be back. But yesterday was not a great look for that side of it. Okay. I'm not saying it was a great look for the team either, because he called the team out as essentially, and it's one side, there's always his side, her side, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. It's hard for me to believe when it takes two to tango that they haven't talked in a month solely because the team wasn't available to talk or to continue the negotiations. But I don't know for sure. That's just my hunch on that. I just thought that thing could have been managed much better and he would have looked much better, because as it was going on, as I said earlier, it got annoying. It was too repetitive. It was too long. He was overselling himself. He doesn't need to do that. We know who he is. I think it should have been 10 minutes, and then the agent can continue to feed the sources he's been feeding in the media. Because we've only heard Terry's side, because Terry's agent has been feeding, various people in the media. That's why we've heard stuff previously. It's not coming from the team, obviously, and we could tell that yesterday. So, number one, Terry's not happy, and he's hurt more than anything else. He's hurt that the team doesn't see it the way he does. This happens in business, man. It happens. You got to get over it. You could tell he was hurt because of the history here. He's a beloved player, and he went through the just absolute worst of times that anybody could go through with an organization, and was first class while doing it. Doesn't necessarily matter to this group because they didn't draft him and they didn't pay him back in 2022. But it's the way he feels. As he said, he doesn't think age matters. He's a number one wide receiver. And I think while he didn't say this specifically, he implied that he's one of the very best number ones. So that's the big takeaway, is just how frustrated, disappointed, unhappy, and hurt he is, because they have come to this situation, and he feels like they should see what his worth is. It should be in alliance with what he believes it to be, and we shouldn't be having this because he's Terry McLaurin, and he has stuck it out, and he's been the most professional of pros. He wants to be here. He really has no choice because he's under contract. He could try to force a trade publicly, but he should want to be here. He's playing in an offense that's perfect for him with a quarterback who is great for him. Now I'll get to the point where I'm not probably going to make some of you happy, but this is how I feel. Tommy said to me on the podcast yesterday, he was very blunt and to the point. It just went on too long. Again, I would have kept it short and sweet. I would have kept it to 10 minutes, more of a statement read after this thing rather than holding, a press conference that got almost unwieldy at the end where he's talking about his Italy trip. And he's very likable, but again, no one there to manage it. I think for me, what's most interesting about this is there are two answers from the team standpoint. One, this is the style in which they are going to negotiate for long-term contract extensions. Remember, Sosna and Newmark have plenty of experience. Penei Sewell, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown. They got deals done. Now, in San Francisco, our general manager, a lot of those deals got done, but there was a process, and it was more or less kind of waiting the player and the agent out. I mentioned recently Kittle, Bosa, and Ayuk's deals were all done very late in camp, just before the regular season ended. August 29th, August 30th, and I think September 4th for the three of those. And remember, Brandon Ayuk was very frustrated last summer, similarly to what Terry is now with the 49ers. But not in, Ayuk, I thought, took it to the point where it was unprofessional. Terry has not done that. And by the way, let me be clear. It wasn't Terry's fault that the press conference went on for 35 minutes. That is somebody in his camp that decided that this was what they were going to do. You got to manage it. But to me, the interesting thing here is it style, and it's just the way the team is going to negotiate, contracts, and we'll just get used to it? Or is it skepticism? Why is this happening? Why doesn't the team believe that it makes sense to get a deal done, maybe even a little bit over what they believe the market to be, and get it done quickly because it's Terry McLaurin? Why? I don't have the answer to that. I don't. But if it's not style, and it wasn't necessarily the style of the Detroit guys, but it was the style of the 49er guy in the organization, if it's not, what is their skepticism? What is it? It may be what I just said. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a year and a half ago, basically, signed a deal that pays him $30 million a year, and he got $77 million guaranteed. He was 24 when he signed it. The first year he played on it, he was 25. And it's hard to make the case that Terry is better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's hard to make the case that he's equal to Amon-Ra St. Brown. The numbers certainly don't say that. Yeah, of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown was with Ben Johnson and Jared Goff and an offense that was high octane for the last couple of years. Sure. And maybe Terry would have produced the same thing in Detroit. As I said before, Terry was 19th in receptions, 32nd in yards, second in touchdowns in the league. Where is that skepticism if that's what it is? I have a feeling it's a combination of style and skepticism. I do. I trust right now, and I have a feeling that I am going to be in the minority on this. I trust the team in handling this right now. It's not just a benefit of the doubt situation. Okay, I, was on board with just, hey, benefit of the doubt, Kev, once new ownership took over. And, I want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt because we haven't been able to do it in years. And they have certainly built up some equity in almost everything they've done. Not everything, but almost everything they've done. This is the first big contract negotiation. I think I am on team front office on this. I think there's some smoke here. I think yesterday's press conference was some smoke. And there may have been a little bit more that I haven't mentioned that I'll mention when we come back. We'll take a couple of calls. Joe's going to jump on with us at 11, and then we'll get back to your calls after Joe. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right, here's what's happening on this, what is it, Wednesday, July 16th. The MLB All-Star Game ended in a historic swing-off. The AL stormed back after being down 6-0 to tie the game and send it to the swing-off. Kyle Schwarber won it for the National League with 3 home runs on 3 swings. And Wizards Summer League, they lost last night to the 76ers by a score of 74-58. Bub Carrington, Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George, Trey Johnson, and Will Riley, all DNPs due to coach's decision. A.J. Johnson led the team with 20 points, and second-round pick Jameer Watkins had 10 himself. Tonight, they will take on Ace Bailey and the Utah Jazz at 10 p.m. And last night, the Mystics also fell to the LA Sparks not by a score of 99-80. Shakira Austin led the team with 16 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. Kelsey Plum and the Sparks had one hell of a night with 4 players scoring 15 or more points. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1 and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
If we're taking sides, I'm on the team side on this. But I do think it'll get done, and I want it to get done, and I want him to feel good about the deal when it is done. But I thought yesterday was not the best look for him personally, and I'm not saying it was his fault at all. Thought it was too long. I think he oversold too much. And I think that there's a disconnect for me because there's skepticism on the team's part. I think that's part of it. And I think we heard that from Terry, essentially, wondering why the team won't get this done. It could ultimately be this is just going to be their style. I am open to that possibility. But there's some skepticism. There may be some stuff we don't know. It may be difficult with Terry's agent, perhaps. I think Terry is certainly one of his biggest clients. Yesterday, whether it was the agent or his PR person, that was just a bit much and needed to get control of that thing for sure. And I'm going to mention one other thing in addition to the Amon-Ra St. Brown thing that I talked about with Sosna and Newmark in particular. Do you know on this top 10 wide receiver list with honorable mentions and others receiving votes, there are three of the top 4 Super Bowl contenders odds-wise don't have a receiver in the top 10 on the honorable mention list or even in any of the receivers that got others receiving votes. Kansas City, Baltimore, and Buffalo. What do they all have in common? Elite level quarterbacking. And from the team standpoint, they may view this as he elevates everybody to such a ridiculously high level. We can't overpay someone that we believe in and we want to be a part of this, but to pay him like he's one of the absolute best receivers in the game at 30 years old. Because the truth is, he's going to elevate almost anybody to a very high level. Now, do I want Terry on this team? Do I think they need Terry on this team? I do. But Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City, 3 of the top 4 odds-on favorites to win the Super Bowl. They don't have a receiver, any of those teams, in the top 10, any of the 7 honorable mention guys, or any of the 9 others receiving votes. So what is that? Like 26 receivers are listed somewhere around there. And they don't have one of them. It's because they have Mahomes, Allen, and Jackson. And we've got Jaden. Jeremy, kick it off for us. What do you say about the whole Terry McLaurin contract situation?
Man, you're throwing out so many tidbits that I need to react to, but let me first provide some context. I'm 47 years old. I've been a huge Washington fan. I've been through it. So I love Terry. Very, very, very good receiver. Great guy. Of course, we want him back. But I cannot stand all of the people on social media screaming, pay the man, just pay him, give him the money. That makes zero sense, right? First of all, he's not a top 5 receiver. Definitely not top 5. Most likely not top 10, but right on the cusp. So it's a really interesting place for him to be. What's really curious to me is who has the leverage, right? Because he had a great year, no doubt, but he's going to regress from a touchdown perspective. We have a generational quarterback that is amazing, right? So Washington's probably, to your point, saying he's going to elevate all of the players around him. Terry knows that. Where's Terry going to go? Where can Terry go that he's going to have a better opportunity? Where's he also going to go? Say no deal is struck, right? If he doesn't agree to play this year, what happens to Terry? I'm asking. I don't know. What happens
his contract wouldn't accrue, and therefore he'd be right back where he is now a year from now if he were to hold out. He's not holding out. Nobody. I mean, the Le'Veon Bell situation doesn't really exist anymore. Everybody understands and learned from that.
If he held out, would he be able to sign wherever he wanted?
No.
After next year?
No.
Okay.
No. He'd the contract would not actually be, the accrual of the contract would not take place because he didn't play. You have to play a certain number of games, I believe. Remember, we went through that with Trent Williams. Yeah.
So to your point, right? the top 3 Super Bowl contenders don't have a receiver that's listed. I think I read or looked up myself that the top 10 out of 15 highest paid receivers didn't make the playoffs last year, which is wild. Now, again, love Terry. There's a lot, but you don't pay. Our old leadership would just throw money at Terry and just pay the man whatever he wants. We're too good now. We're too smart. And we have Jaden. It's wild that he has helped Terry get to this point, but he's also hurting Terry.
Yeah. Yes.
And look, Terry and Zach, I don't even know how to say his name.
Yeah.
Zacchaeus, they both had 10
Zacchaeus, yeah.
receptions for 120 yards and 2 TDs versus the Eagles. Zacchaeus, whoever he is.
Yeah, the great call, and I appreciate it. I got to get to Joe. Everybody on hold, stay there, because when we're done with Joe, we'll get back to calls, I promise. If you want to drop and call back, that's fine, and I apologize because this hour got away from me. But it is interesting to kind of figure out who's got the leverage, right? Terry's under contract, so from that standpoint, he's not got a lot of leverage. But at the same time, the team wants to win now. And they don't want to look bad in the handling of this because of the way the fan base feels about him and the way the locker room feels about him. People watch this stuff. How much it matters, I don't know. Joe Theismann will join me next. Yeah. Hey, Joe. One of the greatest to ever do it for our franchise, number 7, is with us, Joe Theismann. You know what I was just thinking about during the break? We're talking about, Terry McLaurin's press conference and this contract, situation. And the context is they're in this, potential Super Bowl window. These are much better conversations, even though they are, polarizing in some ways, than investigations and congressional hearings and all the things that we've had to talk about over the last 20 years. This is like real stuff having to do with a team that could be really good this year. Isn't that nice?
It really is. Hi, Kevin. How are you? Good
How
morning.
are you, Joe?
I'm good. It's we get to talk football. Unfortunately, it's one of the ancillary aspects of football, but we get to talk about football and the franchise and, the decisions that they have to make, not only with Terry, but I think going forward with other players. Maybe we'll get an indication of the way Adam likes to and wants to approach negotiations.
Yeah, so let's start with the news. Terry held this very long press conference yesterday. He's clearly unhappy. He's hurt. You could sense that that this hasn't gotten done, and that they don't seem to see him the same way he and his agent see himself. What are your thoughts on this situation right now? Because you just said something about Adam Peters, and I've talked about this. This may be the team's style. This is the first real contract situation they've had since they took over the team.
It really is. It's the first opportunity to really see something public, I guess you could say, other than re-signing some guys, which made sense anyway. I think what I sensed listening to the conversation or the press conference was frustration. And I think any time there's a lack of communication, there's frustration, whether it be from management to player or player to management. And that's what I sense over the last 30 days. Terry's heard nothing. I think that's all we really ask for is just give me an idea where I am. Give me an idea where we are. Evidently, they made an offer, and there hasn't been anything since then. So, certainly I understand the frustration. And when you look around the league at the numbers the quarterbacks are getting, and I took the top 10 yesterday and decided to do a little research. Terry's at 15.5 for this year as a salary base. Jamar's at 40 plus. Jefferson's at 35, CeeDee's at 34, DK's at 33, AJ's at 32, Amon-Ra St. Brown's at 30, Brandon Ayuk's at 30, Tyreek Hill's at 30, who I think is underpaid, by the way. T. Higgins 28 and Jalen Waddle's at 28,
right.
And Terry's at 15. I would put Terry above some of these guys on this list, but again, each team has to evaluate the economics of what they believe that position is worth. But there's so much more to Terry McLaurin than just numbers. 82 catches, 13 touchdowns. There's so much more than those statistics. His leadership ability, his availability, which is, if you look at this list, there are guys that have missed a lot more time than Terry has. His locker room, the quality in the locker room. The franchise is continuing to reach out to the community. His ability is what he's done in the community. I mean, the intangibles that Terry brings are extremely valuable, I think, to this franchise. And then there's the one other aspect of it, Kev. You have to think about that. If the franchise is looking at Terry in a certain way, other players around the league are looking at the franchise and saying, if they're dealing with him this way,
right?
If I was to go there, how would they deal with me? There's the what if aspect. And I think all of it, it's based in frustration, I think, by Terry. I mean, he wasn't sitting there saying, hey, look, I want this. I want, let me know what's going on. And it's obviously, if he has an agent, the agent hasn't communicated with him if there is a conversation going on. But at this point, we have to assume, which I hate to do, that there really hasn't been any conversation moving forward with the contract.
Yeah, you said something, and we've talked a lot about it. It's like trying to just figure out who's got more leverage is interesting because what you just described, the team has to be careful because Terry's such a highly respected player, not just in this locker room, but with this fan base and around the league. And this is their first shot in this organization of negotiating a contract. So you don't want to look like you're being disrespectful or handling it in an untoward way. And, also, they're in this window where they do need him because they think they have a shot to go super deep into the postseason and maybe win a Super Bowl. And at the same time, Terry's approaching age 30. He's under contract for one more year. And you went through the contracts, and we've been doing this for weeks, if not months now. It's hard if he's asking for Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, elite level money entering age 30. I just mentioned, Joe, that Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit, Brandon Sosna, who handles salary cap for our team now, Lance Newmark's the assistant GM. They did a deal with him a year and a half ago, $120 million, $30 million a year, 77 guaranteed. He was 24 when he signed that deal. Terry's going to be 30. He's 25 now, Amon-Ra is. And you could make the case that Amon-Ra St. Brown's a better player than Terry. You could. And I'm wondering if that's where it is. What do you think his value is? Have you given that thought?
I have not because I'm not. But we'll take Amon-Ra St. Brown at 30 and his age. Okay, but here's the other thing is if Terry, I think he'd play the year out. I don't think he'd walk from the year. I don't think he's that kind of a person. Okay,
right.
So, but if you take a look at where do you go after? Who are you going to plug in that spot? Look at our roster and tell me who you're going to plug in.
Yeah, that's when we get into this leverage thing, But,
Well,
I pointed out, Joe, that Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore don't have one wide receiver listed in this ranking by execs, coaches, and scouts that ESPN just put out for wide receivers. They don't have one receiver in the top 25 in the league. What they do have is an elite level quarterback who elevates everything around him. But I'm with you. I'd rather have Terry than not have him.
I would too. I think he, like I say, there's the intangibles that he brings, but also there's a tangible aspect. Plus, he knows the system. Debo probably, will have to learn a little bit. And they're two different kinds of football players because people say, well, Debo Samuel can pick up the difference. I think it's an entirely different type of football player, and will be used in an entirely different way. I don't know, but just based upon what you've seen in San Francisco and what his incredible abilities are working inside and his toughness, Terry's basically an outside guy, and he brings an element to the table that we haven't had. We finally have a quarterback who can throw the ball down the field, and this is the other thing that I sort of try. I've run this thing through my mind 1,000 times. We are not quarterback strapped here yet.
Right.
Jaden's still under a rookie contract, which means that there are dollars, and he wouldn't be really eligible for the big numbers until Terry was 33.
Yeah, 27, the offseason at 27. We got 2 more years before they can even pay him. Yeah.
That's right, before they have to sit down and try to figure it out. So, I don't know. Like I said, this is Adam's. This is the first time we've seen the negotiation, been familiar with the way the team wants to approach it. I think Terry's a great asset to this football team. I think he's a great asset to the community. I think he's an asset in the locker room. I think his availability, that's the other thing too, is if you look at this list of guys that I listed, there are a number of them here that have missed time. They haven't been available to play football at periods of time.
Right.
Terry hasn't been one of those guys. So, I think there's so many pluses, and I'd love to see this deal get worked out for our franchise and for him as well. This is not the kind of blemish that you want going into training camp. If somebody was to come out and say, we're sitting down and we're talking, I think everybody would feel better. Not that I have no idea what the numbers are. I don't think anybody does except the principals that are involved. But to say, we're talking, then people would feel better. I think generally speaking, the fans would say, okay, I'm glad they're in communication. Now what happens after that, who knows? But the lack of communication I think was frustrated Terry more than anything.
Yeah, he certainly mentioned that, and and I mentioned, and you're older than I am, and have had more life experiences than me. But there's always his side, her side, and the truth is somewhere in between. So right?
But Kevin, that like I was saying, wherever the numbers are, nobody knows.
Yeah, I'm talking about the communication.
There isn't it. That's what I'm saying.
It's a two-way street. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Terry's reached out and said, "Hey, look, is this your bottom line?" And all of a sudden, from what I sensed in the press conference, there hasn't been a whole lot of communication back. And maybe Adam's just formulating a plan to be able to present in a different light. You just don't know. There's lots of what ifs as far as this goes.
So I don't have a sense from the first 10 minutes of talking to you if you have sort of a side that you've taken, team or Terry, and maybe it's neither.
I would love Terry to be here. I think at $15 million he is underpaid.
Well, of course,
I said, I don't know where they want to go. I think this is, we talk about this opportunity. This is also the first time that Adam has had a chance to be able to deal with a star player.
Right.
We gave a lot of money to a lot of defensive linemen over the years. Wasted money, to be honest with you. Some wasted, some not. But in Terry's case, you look at the production, you look at all the intangibles we talked about. You look at the comps. Basically, it's like basically it's like shopping for a house. Look at the neighborhood that he's in, and look at the comps in the neighborhood, and where do you fit in?
Right.
And that's really where it is. So I understand. What I do understand about Terry is I understand the frustration, the lack of communication. I've been in that situation. Nothing drives you crazier than the unknown in that regard. But Adams, he's got his job to do as the GM of this football team. Terry's got his job to do. I guess you could say the bottom line is if things don't get worked out, Terry McLaurin is going to be an asset to somebody somewhere. I'll give you an example. I played with Kyle Juszczyk in the American Century Championship this past weekend.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
San Francisco cut him. Okay?
Right.
They cut him. All of a sudden, some suitors started coming for him. He got a new 2-year deal at a better price. So, it's like they probably looked at it. I think Kyle and John looked at, what are we with him? What are we without him? And could we live without him? They found out they couldn't live without him. I would hate to see our situation get to a point where you find out that the void, that if Terry would not be there, the void would be bigger than we think to overcome.
I love having you on because sometimes we get to talk about, when you played. So just real quickly, do you have a contentious contractual negotiation story?
No, never contentious. When I played, you were just thankful to have a job without options. We didn't have any place to go. There wasn't any free agency.
Yeah, right.
You played your rear end off to keep your job, and you stayed on the field because if the other guy got in, you'd wind up with the Tom Brady, Drew Bledsoe scenario, or the Colin Kaepernick, Alex Smith scenario. You just, somebody comes in, they do well, all of a sudden the team takes off, and you're left standing there watching. So, but I did have conversations with Mr. Cook. I did my own contract, my last contract.
Oh, you did?
There was no reason to have an agent because he was going to give me whatever he wanted to give me. Like I said, I had no leverage other than the fact that we won a world championship and I was MVP of the league, which, carried, I don't know if it carried weight or not with Mr. Cook.
So that was the year after 83. That's you had 84. A contract negotiation.
Yeah. He would redo the deals before it was over.
Okay.
So my contract was, ended in 83 and, the 82, 83 seasons were, really terrific as far as the team goes. And, what little bit I was able to contribute, I guess helped. But when I sat down, I made 5 trips out to his house to sit down with him. And finally, sat down with me and he presented me a contract. And I looked at Mr. Cook and I said, "Thank you so much." I said, this is wonderful. He says, "No, it's not. It's great. And you deserve it." And he was very emphatic with everything he did. I used to go out to his
Was it great?
It was great. I was the 4th highest paid player in the National Football League.
Do you remember what it was for? I mean, I think people love to hear the stories from back then and then compare it to today.
Yeah, I was the fourth highest paid player in the league at $1 million a year.
Wow.
Warren Moon was the highest paid player in the league at 1.4.
Wow.
And I mean, it was like I said, but the numbers sort of are one thing, but then where did you fit in with the other players? And this is I think what really is the bottom line here in Terry's situation is where do you fit in with these other receivers, these other top 10 receivers economically? You know, are you part of that group? I think he is part of that group. Now, where does he fit in? That's I think the question that remains.
All right, exit question on Terry, because I want to get to Art and his jersey being retired and maybe a couple of other things. But how do you see this ending? Does he get a contract extension, at some point between now and camp opening or at some point during camp? Does he play this year on the final year of his deal, or does he, I guess the one other option would be he could, try to publicly force a trade? Where are you?
Number one, I don't think he'd publicly force a trade. He's not that kind of person. Number two, he's not the kind of a guy who leaves his teammates hanging. I think he would play this if things couldn't work out and didn't work out. I believe he would play. He would play this year at great risk to him economically going forward. And I don't. This is the first time we've seen this, so you don't know what position Adam is going to take. So it's hard to say that the organization will do this or the organization will do that. But I don't see Terry leaving his teammates in the lurch at all. I think he's that type of an admirable young man and that type of a committed athlete.
Well, it wouldn't benefit him to hold out. I mean, the way the rules are, first of all, they can't even take back the fine money anymore. But so you think? So did you say this, and did I miss it? Do you think he'll get a contract done?
I didn't say that. I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly don't know. Like I said, what I basically said is this is the first time we've ever really seen this with Adam and the organization.
Yeah.
So I mean,
right.
There's no history to base it off of. When you think about it, I mean, they got contracts done out in San Francisco. They weren't,
and they got them done late. Typically,
they always,
very late.
Like I said, it wasn't easy, but it did get done.
Yep.
So there's cautious optimism as always. It seems like we're back to cautious optimism somehow, way, shape, or form.
All right. So a third teammate of yours is having his jersey retired. They announced yesterday that Art's jersey, number 81, will be retired on Sunday Night Football against Seattle, November 2nd. By the way, that's the throwback uniform game number one of the 3 games they're going to wear them. Right. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's fantastic. I think it took way too long for. And it's great that the organization that the Commanders have expedited this for Art. No one should ever wear the jersey because there wasn't anybody like him. He was unique in so many ways: his size, his speed, his ability after he got his hands on the ball. He was a converted running back really when we got him.
Yeah,
and it was so funny with Coach Gibbs. I mean, this is the genius of Joe Gibbs. Art could not get away from bump and run coverage. You could put somebody on him and he'd belly bump the guy and he'd hand fight him, and he'd never really get into his routes. So Joe basically, looked at what he had as far as the player and he said, I'm just going to move him. Art did all of our movement. Art did all the motions and everything. It was all Art, which made him, number one, have to learn multiple positions. And number two, gave him a chance to be able to get down the field and get into routes a lot easier and a lot quicker. And then when the ball got around him, he just snatched it all the time. I just can't remember a time, and I don't know if you can, when he really put the ball on the ground. I mean, he always caught the football, and he was a big target. And once he got his hands, like I said, then the running back came out in him. But he certainly was special, and I was honored to be able to play with him, and I was lucky to be able to have him as a part of our wide receiving corps.
Yeah, during the years in which he wasn't in the Hall of Fame, and the case that Peter King and others were trying to make for keeping him out was he was a possession receiver. Gary Clark was the true home run threat, when he was playing with Gary, or Charlie Brown was, in the early years. And I thought that was way incorrect. He could run deep, and you hit him on deep touchdown passes. The one in Philadelphia that kicked off 82 was a bomb to him.
Oh yeah, I mean Art could run with anybody. I mean, because it's a little bit like I guess you could say AJ Brown right now. You look at how big a receiver he is, and you say, well, he's a guy that can't get down the field. That's not true. I mean, if I was going to pick a body type and say, okay, Art was like this, that would be the player. And you look at him go down the field, and you look at him adjust to the ball. He's a very difficult guy to deal with because of his size. And Artie was the same way. He used to wear a necklace that had a dollar sign on it. I used to call him Big Money. That was my nickname for him.
Yeah. Can I tell you one thing about the decision to do Art now? Of course, Art's jersey deserves to be retired. He's on that list. I think Riggo's should have been done first before Art. It's a decision by the organization. I think, like I say, I think it's great that he is there, and then whatever happens going forward. But it's nice to know that he's getting his retired. All right. American Century, how'd you play? I actually didn't look up to see how you did. You play in this every year. You've been playing in it forever. You're an excellent golfer. I know you're not Steph Curry, and you're a lot older too. But tell me how you played, and tell me who you played with, and about the weekend.
Well, I did not play well.
Okay.
I just can't hit the ball as far. You at a country club, when you play, you can play certain tees that sort of suit your age or distance or abilities. I played back with everybody else, and didn't play well. I mean, I couldn't hit a lot of the par fours, so it's drive 3-wood, and then you got to hit the wedge close if you can to try and make a putt. If not, you're making a bogey, and that gets you nowhere. But I had way too many doubles. I think I had 14 doubles in the last 2 days. I just wasn't striking the ball well. I didn't hit it well. I didn't move the ball down the course.
Right.
It's the one, the one thing is if you watch the tours, if you watch the Champions Tour or the PGA Tour, the LPGA, anybody that hits the ball far has a really good chance, because then you've got scoring clubs in your hands. Yeah. When you're hitting, 4 and 5 hybrids,
rescues,
greens, they're just not going to sit. They're not going to hold. So I chipped pretty well because I had a lot of opportunity to do it, but it was a great experience. One thing about American Century as a company, they give away 40% of their gross profits to the Stour Institute for Research on Disease and Cures in Kansas City. And so it's a fabulous organization. The American Century Championship was a great one. Joe Pavelski won it. Yeah. The hockey guys have such great eye-hand coordination.
Really incredible.
And baseball too. But it was a great time out in Lake Tahoe.
But I would imagine, for those that don't know, Joe was a multi-sport star in high school and played basketball, baseball, football. I would imagine you've got excellent hands around the green.
Yeah, it's the chipping was very good this year. Unfortunately, like I said, I couldn't get the ball down the holes very well. And then putting is always a head case out there. I mean, you putt in the morning, it's a little quicker. If you just sort of try and walk it up to the hole, it goes left or goes right. If you hit it too hard and miss, you got 4 feet coming back. And that wears on you after 3 days.
Right.
Mentally, it just drives you crazy.
All right, last one. I don't know if you saw this, but ESPN's been doing these positional rankings, but not, based on analysts or reporters. It's coaches, execs, and scouts surveyed by ESPN to come up with the top 10. They've been doing this for like 6 years, and they had the top 10 quarterback list the other day, and Jaden was 5 behind Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Jackson, and then Jaden Daniels was the 5th best quarterback according to NFL people. Do you have a problem with that?
Not at all. Not at all. I think, in his first year, learning the system, him learning the system and, Cliff figuring out what he had at the quarterback position, the way he played, he earned the right to be there. The other guys have had, they're pedigreed to a degree. Patrick, I still think is the best. Lamar brings so much to the table, especially, with Derek in the backfield with him. Josh, I thought, had a great year, made good decisions. He's always athletically been able to do the things, but I thought he made really good decisions. And, Joe, we know what Joe is. You look at, like I said, complimented by the receivers that he has. I thought Jalen, had a great year. I see other guys on the list, Jared Goff, the receivers that he has had, the system. Now he's going to have to deal with the system change. So, I think Jaden is positioned really where he should be in the top 5 in the National Football League.
It's always great to have you on. I hope you're doing well. Enjoy the rest of the summer, and hopefully we can catch up right before the season begins.
I look forward to it, Kev. Thank you.
All right, Joe Theismann, everybody, at Theismann7 on X on Twitter. All right, I don't know did everybody stay on hold, Max, or do we have to pitch for calls again?
No, everybody stayed on hold. I'm very impressed. Thank you all of you.
301-230-0980. If you're on hold, stay there. Your reaction to the Terry McLaurin press conference yesterday, and really, whose side are you on right now? Terry's side or the team side? Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. We're free and live on the Odyssey app.
not seeing eye to eye yet. And, rarely do we see deals done on July 15th or July 14th, like we saw 3 huge deals done over the past 2 days. Usually right up against the start of training camp is when these things really kick into gear and when the deadlines end up creating deals. The Commanders are not there. So just because Terry McLaurin does not have a new contract yet doesn't mean he is not going to get a new contract. You mentioned some of the numbers. My understanding, he wants to be in the 30s. And judging by his stats, 30s makes sense. And the fact that Garrett Wilson, on his first big deal, obviously much younger than Terry McLaurin, but on his first big deal, got more than $32 million per year based on new money, you'd think that would be good news for McLaurin. We also know that he is pretty serious, right? I mean, he was not there at a mandatory minicamp. He spoke today to reporters, many local reporters and some other people who were there to listen to his words. He sounds serious. He is obviously not happy. Commanders want to get this done. You really do have to think, Tom, that this will get done in time. These receiver deals are getting to a point where they are so massive, teams have to make absolutely sure you want to lock a guy up before you do so.
Yesterday, talking about Terry's deal, saying he wants a deal in the 30s. I'll tell you what's so interesting about these wide receiver deals is, remember, there was a time where, it was pass rusher, left tackle, corner, even before receiver, obviously quarterback. Sauce Gardner just signed the biggest deal in the history of the position, corner, $30 million a year. I mean, that barely, but it barely gets into the top, 7, top 8 in NFL wide receiver contracts. I mean, what position's more important, corner or wide receiver? I'd say wide receiver in today's game. With the offensive rules, everything favoring offense, there's just so many of them. Terry right now would play this year if he doesn't sign a contract extension on, a deal with not, that much cash left, $15-16 million worth of cash left. But the average annual is at 22 plus from his last deal. That last deal got done, if you recall, at the end of June. If you also recall, there was a lot going on in the organization. Congressional hearings were approaching. A lot was going on, and would not surprise me if the owner wanted to get it done and create, another story that was football related in that moment. We'll see. Look, I went through this in hour 1, and I'll net it out for you. I want Terry. I like Terry. I feel for him because I think he is frustrated and confused and hurt. I think you heard that yesterday. I'll say what I said in the first hour of the show. I think that press conference was handled very poorly, not by Terry, but by whomever it was responsible for calling it and managing it. It was not the team. I know his agent was there, and I don't know if there was a PR person involved, but 35 minutes talking about your contract situation where it got very repetitive at times was not good for anybody yesterday. Makes me wonder about, the representation and how that's working with the team. But anyway, to me, one of the things that I came away with was, is it style or is it skepticism? Is this divide because the team's skeptical? They don't see Terry anywhere near the way Terry sees Terry, especially not at 30 years old. And I talked about last hour, Terry talked a lot about his age and how he's a different 30 because he doesn't have the wear and tear from the college, reps and snap counts, et cetera, at Ohio State. But this group, which includes Lance Newmark and Brandon Sosna, who came from Detroit. Sosna's the salary cap guy, Newmark, the assistant GM. They did a deal with Amon-Ra St. Brown not that long ago for $30 million a year, 120 in aggregate, okay? 77 guaranteed, but he was 24 when he signed it, played on it at 25. And they're probably looking at this saying, Terry wants more than Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's 4.5 years younger. And by the way, you could make the case is better. Easily make that case. So I think some of that's playing into it too. The team's saying it's too much, man. It's too much. And by the way, you're playing with a better quarterback. You're playing with the number 5 quarterback in the game. I think they'll get it done, though. That's my net takeaway or net conclusion. I still think they will get a deal done. I don't want Terry playing on the last year of his contract, but I do trust the team in this situation. I do. If I were to take a side right now and say, who do I believe in more and who am I going to, stick with on this? I'm sticking with the team. They've built up a lot of equity here in the last year and a half, last year, and I think there is some stuff here that I wish we knew that we don't know. I still think it'll get done, though. All right. Everybody's been on hold for a while. Let's go to Ian. He's been on hold the longest. Ian, what do you say?
Kevin, I agree with everything you've said. I thought it was way too long. He almost sounded like an agent or a hype man trying to hype up a client like a boxer.
Yeah, it got to be a bit much. I agree.
Right. Now, let me say 2 parts. I would want to take a side if I knew what Terry's asking for and what the team is offering.
Of course, it's hard.
Given that we don't know, it's hard to know who's being unreasonable. Second point, before my big takeaway, my second point is you're right. Receivers don't move the needle like a quarterback. Everybody understands that. We get this. But if the goal is to win now and to be a contender for the next 2 to 3 years, unless they had drafted a receiver in the first or second round, you need him. So the leverage to me is a little bit more on Terry's side in that who's your option? You don't have another option right now. And I agree, he's not a top 10 guy. That's been proven in multiple ways.
He's close.
10 through 12, 10 through 15. But he's needed because the team doesn't have another option. Deebo Samuel is not a number 1 receiver. This is not 5 years ago when he made his 1 Pro Bowl All-Pro team. But the last point I want to say to you is, Kevin, you spend a ton of time lambasting government bureaucracy and government procedure saying, hey, in the private sector Kevin days and working at the grocery store startup, we would lock the doors, order some pizzas.
That was a great condescending way in which you discussed it, but go ahead.
But you should keep that same energy being like, hey, why doesn't Josh Harris, Terry McLaurin, and their agent lock the doors, order some pizzas, and just get this?
No. This is a contract negotiation. This isn't a deal that's already been done in which you just have to sign off on either yay or nay. You're comparing it to the DC Council. It's absurd.
Yeah, but the DC
contract
Council
negotiation, actually, a lot of times contract negotiations work in favor of the people that are patient and wait it out. It's a terrible analogy by you. Terrible analogy.
Kevin, you would side with the DC Council then, because if they're waiting out the team, they're doing it.
If that's what they're doing, and I've suggested that. You know that. I've suggested, look, if they believe that the team isn't going anywhere, even if they don't vote on this thing until January, and they're really hardball negotiating, good for them. Good for them.
Okay, fair.
But I haven't heard that. I've heard that there's frustration that they can't lock themselves in a room and on a weekend and get this thing done. That they're taking their recess. But it was a terrible analogy to the team's situation. But I agree with you on this, that we don't know enough. The Rappaport, he wants something, in the 30s, low 30s, perhaps. Like if the team is offering a deal that is, close to, say, the T. Higgins deal, who's a number 2 receiver, he's great. Don't get me wrong, but if they're out offering like $28 million a year, and by the way, the guaranteed money is always more important anyway, and they're offering $40 to $50 million guaranteed, I'd then start to wonder whether or not, cash is an issue for them right now. Seriously. Let's go to Ralphie in Rockville. Ralphie, thanks so much for holding. Go ahead.
Thanks, Kevin. I just wanted to say I was with you on Terry about where he ranked as a receiver last year, but what Terry did in the playoffs put him in that elite category, in my opinion. Just for comparison, if you look at like Justin Jefferson, he disappears in a lot of big games and in the playoffs. I've been watching him a lot, and I remember when he disappeared on Kirk.
Terry's not Justin Jefferson.
He's not Justin Jefferson,
Okay.
but you gotta take into account that in big games, and I was watching him when he played with Kirk in 2023 in that playoff game and how he disappeared.
How about the
Kirk
catch
was
in Buffalo when they had that miracle win that miracle play on 4th and 21 and ended up leading them to victory? You remember that one?
Yeah, I remember that, but at the same time, look at last year. Against the Lions, he was a no-show again.
Well,
so,
Sam Darnold was a no-show.
True, but you got to if you're going to get double team, you got to get open. Chase always gets open. AJ Brown.
So
always
does
gets open with
Jefferson.
double team. I'm not too high on him. I got to see more. But Terry, he shows up in big games, and he showed that in the last 2 playoff games, even when Heineke was their quarterback. But I'm always team first. But Terry has more leverage in this situation. That's just we're going into a year that we can contend for a championship. So who you can't really plug, like Joe Theismann said, we can't really plug and play another guy in his position. If it was early in the offseason, maybe. But and then last but not least, I thought it was real interesting that Terry brought up that bubble screen at all the plays that he had, because I think he was trying to let people know, like, hey man, I'm still that guy. I'm the person who did that. Really, besides the people who are blocking, but I don't need a quarterback, to be productive. And he proved that with Heineke and all the quarterbacks that he played with prior to Jaden. But like I said, I think Terry has more leverage just because of where we are at the moment in terms of contending for a championship. Thanks, Kev.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the call. Yeah, he did single out that one play. That was a massive play in the game. They were down 14-10, and the Lions had gone right down the field, taken the lead. Washington was, we had to keep pace with them during that stretch, and then it was the Quan Martin pick 6 that kind of turned the game and got it to more than one score. All right, everybody on hold, stay there. I promise you, we'll continue the calls. Your reaction to Terry McLaurin's contract negotiation press conference, contract update press conference, and whose side are you on right now? Team side or Terry's side? Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. We're free and live on the Odyssey app.
All right, last night, the MLB All-Star Game ended in a historic fashion. The AL stormed back after being down 6-0 to tie the game, sending it to a swing-off for the first time in All-Star Game history. Kyle Schwarber won it for the NL with 3 home runs on just 3 swings. The Wizards, they suffered a Summer League loss last night to the Philadelphia 76ers by a score of 74-58. Bub Carrington, Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George, Trey Johnson, and Will Riley, all DNPs due to coach's decision. A.J. Johnson led the team with 20 points, and the second-round pick Jameer Watkins had 10 himself. Tonight, they will take on Ace Bailey and the Utah Jazz at 10 p.m. And last night, the Mystics also fell to the L.A. Sparks by a score of 99-80. Shakira Austin led the team with 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists. Kelsey Plum and the Sparks had one hell of a night with 4 players scoring 15 or more points. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1 and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the streams and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
someone I know who does contracts said, tear up his deal, 3 years, 90 million, 60 guaranteed, call it a day. He's 32, and he's entering his age 32 season on the last year of the deal. And the problem with that, of course, is that it's 30 million a year, and he wants it to look better than that. So maybe it's 30, 2 a year for 3 years. But he said maybe they're thinking that they want to shorten the deal and give him less guaranteed money. We'll see. I don't know. There's so many ways, I guess, to do this. If you're on hold, let's do this. We're talking Terry McLaurin and the press conference yesterday. I'm right now sort of on this team side. I trust that the team will do it the right way. The leverage thing is so interesting. The team needs Terry to contend, I think. They need Jaden a lot more. They don't want to look like they're being disrespectful in their first major negotiation. So there's that aspect of it, sort of, how they're viewed and the handling of somebody who's so well respected. And at the same time, Terry's under contract for another year. And, he is entering age 30, and he's not some of the guys that he's probably asking for, whether it's in player ability or in age or a combination of both. And I'm telling you, I think this Amon-Ra St. Brown deal is the one to focus on more than the DK Metcalf deal from the team standpoint, because Amon-Ra St. Brown's deal was done with Lance Newmark and Brandon Sosna in Detroit. He signed that deal when he was 24. He played on that deal last year for the first year at 25. And it was a 4-year, $120 million deal with $77 million guaranteed. That's $30 million a year. That puts him, by the way, in terms of average annual, at 7th overall in the NFL. He's just barely ahead because it was just a little bit more than $30 million a year. It was $30,250,000 a year. Puts him just ahead of Tyreek Hill and Brandon Ayuk, but puts him behind A.J. Brown and now Garrett Wilson and DK Metcalf. I think that's a deal that they're looking at and saying, if you were 25, we'd do that deal with you. But we did that deal with Amon-Ra St. Brown at the, as 2023 was winding down, and it's not that long ago, and he was 24. And he's better than you are, because you could certainly make that case. I think it's got to go, just a little bit over 30, maybe a little bit more than Amon-Ra St. Brown, and maybe a little bit less guaranteed. I don't know. Dominic in Tampa, thanks. Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Hey, Dominic, how are you?
Good. Yeah, so I'm on team, AP side here. I'm on the team side, and I think this is a situation where, two things. One, again, and you kind of said it earlier, and I totally agree with you. We all love Terry. He's great. We know that. But he was not drafted by this new regime.
Yep.
That plays a role into a lot of things. And two, if this was any other quarterback, if this was, Howell, Jason Campbell, you name it, then yes, give Terry whatever he wants. But this is a situation where I think that the quarterback makes the players better around him, and he's going to make a Lane better. He's going to make a McCaffrey better. I think Terry needs Jaden more than Jaden needs Terry, in my personal opinion. And I do
agree.
Also think
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, this is a situation where you got
Terry did well with bad
best
quarterbacks. I'm not knocking that, but if he wants to achieve, a level of truly one of the best in the game, he needs Jaden, because Devontae Adams didn't necessarily need Aaron Rodgers, but I think Terry is. Look, I've said this a million times. I mean, Terry has yet to have a catch season of 90 or more catches. Yeah, the yardage has been great, and the touchdowns last year were exceptional, but I could see a real breakout, and I say breakout year, but like a 90 reception plus year with Jaden this year, in 1,200 yards, 1,300 yards, and 10, 11, 12, 13 touchdowns again. I could see that. He needs the elite level quarterback more than some of the other guys do, but pretty much all of them need really good quarterbacking.
Yeah, no, I totally, you're on point with that. And I think that's what the team is thinking in the back of their minds is, hey, listen, we don't have to pay this guy like he's, he is a number one. Let's we'll everybody knows that, but he's not to the elite level of he's the great, he's not a Justin Jefferson, type, player. So they're thinking we don't need to pay him that much because, Jaden's going to make everybody
they're
around
not
him
paying
better.
him that
So
much. There's no chance that he gets a $35 million, a year, $110 million guaranteed. We are talking about the area of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk. I hope that's what we're talking about from the team standpoint. If they're down in the 27, 28 million a year, I think that's too low. I wish we knew. We don't. Thanks for the call, Dominic. I got to get to a break. I promise. Eric, Mark, Bones, Kevin, Joe, Ross, Dennis, everybody on hold. I'll give you guys a shot. We'll have a little bit more time this coming hour. Stay on hold. What did you make of the Terry McLaurin presser yesterday? And then whose side are you on right now? Are you on the team side or Terry's side? Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980. You can also stream us on the team980.com. You can also listen to us whenever you want, wherever you want on the Odyssey app. And don't forget, we are also on our YouTube channel where you can watch us, the Team 980 YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and like it when you get there. If you've got older windows, you're probably losing a lot of that air conditioning right now. It's getting out of your home during these hot and humid days. You've got older windows more likely than not, so swap them out with new windows. My recommendation is to give Window Nation the first shot, and that's all I ask you to do is call them at 866-90-NATION or head to windownation.com. Schedule a free in-home estimate. It'll take an hour or less. They'll schedule it for you when it's convenient. You'll find out which windows actually in the home need to be replaced, and you can get them replaced. And right now, how about this deal? 50% off on all window styles with no interest charged until the year 2030. 5 years, no interest. They'll finish the job in a day or less. Their average installers, 16 years of experience. They've got over 45,000 five-star reviews and an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau. You can't go wrong calling Window Nation for new windows. 866-90-NATION, windownation.com if you need new windows. All right. Back to the phone lines. And again, I added another part to this, which we haven't talked about yet, and that is concern level. Like, where are you in terms of being concerned now that this isn't going to get done, that Terry's going to be forced to play on the last year of his deal, or even worse, he'll hold out? That's not going to happen. Or, even worse, they'll end up trading him. I don't think that's going to happen. But where are you on the concern level that he's not going to be signed to a contract extension, and he's perhaps going to miss a lot of training camp? But in addition to that, which side have you taken? Team Terry or team? Look, Terry's a really good player, all right? He is a great team guy. He's proven so much. I wouldn't pay him on based on the kind of guy that he's been or the player that he's been. I'd pay him based on the kind of guy he's going to be, which I think is pretty predictable, and the player that he's going to be, which I also think is going to be a very, very good player for the next few years. With that said, I trust the team. I think there's a lot we don't know about this. I trust the team to handle it the right way. They, we may find out in a couple of years this is their style. We may find out in a couple of years that this is a bad style, or they're just not, willing to pay, the going rate for a player like Terry McLaurin, even at his age. But for now, I trust that the team is doing what's in the best interest of the team. It's funny because I bet you they feel like they have some leverage because Terry's under contract, and Terry probably feels like he has some leverage because they want him, because they want to win now, and they don't want to look bad in the negotiation of, with a player that's as popular as Terry is. I'm actually surprised so far at the calls. A lot of you have said that, you're either leaning, towards the team side or you understand the team side. Dennis has been on hold for a while. Dennis, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, this is interesting. And I'm a little older than you, but he signed a 3-year, $68+ million contract, of which he's going to get every dollar. I don't want to hear somebody whine that he's only making $23 million average, and if I don't get $32 million average, I'm going to take the ball and go home. It's nonsense. Why did he have to say anything? I think the team is smart. I'm not on their side. Team's smart. Shut up. Do your negotiating. And if they don't give you a contract, go out, get your other $15.5 million, and then go sign somewhere else or sign with us. But I don't want to hear these millionaires whining how they're not getting paid properly. I can't stand it. And I love McLaurin, but he never made anybody's record better. And that guy who thought that he's just Jefferson, what would this team be, Kevin, with Justin Jefferson on it? Let's trade him.
So,
God.
So Dennis, you are very much sort of old school. He signed a contract, play according to the contract you signed, live up to the commitment. You've got a year left on the commitment. And I don't have a problem with that. The issue, though, is it's actually better for the team right now to negotiate something long term. It's in both of their interests to get a deal done that keeps Terry locked in here for 3 more years at least, because he's really good. And right now there's nobody else out there. It's not like they can go add, they could go add Amari Cooper. He's still a free agent. Who knows? Maybe they're thinking about some of these guys. Amari Cooper's out there. Keenan Allen's out there. Gabe Davis is out there in terms of wide receivers. I think that's still the list, unless they've signed here recently. But it's in both of their best interest for Terry to sign a long-term deal. Now, you could make the case the team's got the franchise tag that they could use next year, if he has a big year and they want to go year to year, but then it ends up being, and they have the cap space and they have, the ability to do it. But I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, the employer in this situation probably wants to give him a new deal. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Kevin in Arlington. Kevin, go ahead.
Hey, Kev. Thanks for taking my call. At this point in the calendar, I still look at this as a bit of a tempest in a teapot. Let's see how it plays out as we get to training camp, as we get towards August and the regular season. But
deadlines make deals.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Deadlines make deals.
Of course. And this, certainly Adam's former employer, the 49ers, have shown they'll take it right up to the end if they have to. So, I think for now, I'm fine with the ongoing negotiation. I will say, unlike Art Monk's last negotiation with the Skins that didn't go well, and I mentioned Art for 2 reasons. One, he's in the news with his getting his jersey retired, which is great. Right. But also, when he asked for another deal, another 1-year deal or whatever it was back when he was still at the Skins, he had already been given sort of that 1-year swan song deal by the team, and the team was, they were moving on. So in that instance,
well, he was also what was he? 37 years old.
Exactly right. But in this case, and there's a caveat here. Whenever Snyder's people were running things, I never sided with management because they were so stupid all the way through. Yeah. But generally, I do side with management. In this case, I think I'm siding with McLaurin potentially, and here's why. I call it the Andy Dufresne analog. Being with Snyder people, he's gone through the waste tube, okay? And he's come out, and the storm cleaned him up, and that was last season, and it was wonderful for him. But you know what? Here's the thing. They're still paying the Snyder tax, Kev. Josh Harris and his team, the Harris ownership group, they're paying a Snyder tax, and it's too bad. But the team risks having a self-inflicted wound if this goes south. Because, Terry has all the leverage. There isn't someone else out there like that. He has the sympathy view. He is the prototypical guy you want to be as your leader, as your person who's an ambassador, who's going to draw free agents to your city. There's a lot of reasons why you might just, make an exception and maybe give a little bit more, whether it's money or term, than you would normally because of the quality of this individual. But here's the last thing I wanted to say, because he also asked about why the potential skepticism, if it's that, if it's not style of skepticism. Terry had a challenge last year against the Eagles, our number one opponent. He only had 1 catch in the first game. He had 5 and a touchdown in the second game. But in that game, they lost their stud safety, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And then in the playoff game, yes, he took that slant for a touchdown, but he only had 3 catches. And the interesting thing is when Quinyon Marshall...
He had a really good game against Tampa, though.
Well, I'm sorry?
He had a really good game in Tampa.
And against Detroit. But guess what? We got to go through Philly. I'm just saying, if there's some reason for skepticism, Quinyon Marshall pretty much had his way with Terry McLaurin in all 3 games.
I didn't think about it from that, but you're right. He did not. He struggled against the Eagles. Yep.
And mostly because of Mitchell. Mitchell took him one-on-one much of the time. Check out the next gen stats on. I'll send you something anyway. That's a concern perhaps for them. We've got to have Terry, if he's going to be paid like this.
Yep.
being more dominant in games against the best opponent, and that's the Eagles.
All right, Kev. Hope is a good thing, Red. It's a good thing. And I have hope right now. I do, that it will get done. I think they'll figure it out. I really do. It is a bit of a tempest in a teapot. Joe has been on hold for a while. Joe, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, what's going on?
What's up, Joe?
So about a month ago, I think it was like early June, you and I talked about how this whole situation started, and I said that it's June, we have something to talk about, and I wasn't concerned. A month has gone by, and I'm showing a little more concern, but it has nothing to do with the team, because I do trust the team. I know they'll get done because they don't want a player like Terry to go. I mean, I agree that Terry's not at the same level as Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. I don't know what that caller said a couple of callers ago saying he's better than Jefferson. He's not. But I'm concerned after the press conference yesterday because whoever was in charge of this press conference could have ended it after 10 minutes. The fact that it went over half an hour, was it 40 minutes or something like that, was crazy. I mean, it could have just made the point and then stopped and then it was done. Yeah. And it's unfortunate, Kevin, because yesterday we were all celebrating Art Monk's jersey being retired finally, and this kind of overshadowed it. I mean, it would be nice because, I mean, when I heard that they were having a press conference with Terry, I thought, well, maybe there's a good thing coming, and it lasted longer than it should have been. So I'm concerned of how the press conference went yesterday, concerned that we haven't gotten a deal done yet, but I trust the team because Terry's still going to play this upcoming season, and I know that for the first time he has a quarterback, and after 10 other attempts at having a quarterback previously, he finally has someone who was literally 60 minutes away from them playing in the Super Bowl together. Yep. So, yeah, he wants to be here, and we want him here too. So take care, Kevin. That's all I got.
Thanks, Joe, as always. Tommy thought that it wasn't coincidence that the team put out the Art Monk announcement shortly before Terry's press conference yesterday.
It's very funny, Kevin, because the producer chat has also been noticing the exact same thing. So we a return to the Snyder era almost is kind of how it felt for a second.
Yeah, well, that's not exactly the way they did it because they did have to make that announcement at some point.
True.
Dan would do things that weren't even planned to keep, to divert attention. But
that's a good point.
Yeah. Let's go to Eric in Norfolk. Eric, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. Look, as far as sides go, I probably lean Terry, but, as Ian said, we really need to know what the numbers are that we're hung up on. It's easy for me to say pay Terry when it's not my checkbook. I want to see him get paid number one receiver money, somewhere between that 30 to 32,000 a year, because he is the number one on our team right now. But the thing is, he likely won't be, and realistically shouldn't be, our number one receiver once the final years of the deal come around, as we should have a potential successor by that point, as he relegates to more of that mentor number two role. So I kind of get where the team's hung up on. But, the biggest thing for me, I feel the team really needs to get some communication back open. That's, one of the things he harped on the most before rookies report to training camp. Not necessarily a deal, just, some report of some kumbaya communication, because ZQ's likely will be given his what it is to be a commander kind of speech to the rookies on Friday. And, they're aware of what's going on. And since Quinn had everyone bought in on that mindset last year, you don't want that to become, kind of poster talk. Communication was open last year. Terry mentioned that, he texted with Josh Harris and Mitch Rales and Magic, during the season, so don't text him during the season when he's scoring 13 touchdowns and going for over 1,000 yards, but then kind of leave him hanging out to dry when it comes time to pay the man. So kind of getting some communication back open, I think, is important. And, last thing I'll leave you with this. One of my buddies commented on one of the Commander's social posts about paying Terry, and Frankie Louvu liked it. So, he's paying attention, and,
the players love Terry. This is part of where the team has to be, a bit careful, because he's not only beloved and highly respected by fans, but by his locker room and by players around the league. Remember, it's not just your own players, but you're going to be in free agency next year, and players watch this. I don't know how much they really take it to heart, to be honest with you, because ultimately everybody's own negotiation is the most important thing for them. But this organization's already been lauded and complimented in so many ways as being the opposite of what it once was, in terms of the way that they handle people. And we see that even in our own community. I mean, I talk to people all the time that had dealt with the old team that now deal with the new group, and they're like, it's night and day. These are actual real people. And the other people were, hideous to deal with. But I still trust the team. I think they'll figure it out. And I do like the one thing that came out of yesterday, and I'm being repetitive here, but I got this sense that Terry was, hurt that this was happening, that he views himself, as he should, because it's true, as the locker room guy, the guy that waded through the troubled waters for all of those years, as the most respectable guy on the team and one of the highest producing guys on the team. He had a great season last year. They were 60 minutes away from the Super Bowl. He and Jaden had a connection, not early, but they obviously developed one. One of the iconic plays of the season, top 5 plays of the season for sure, was the catch that he made on the throw on Monday Night Football against Cincinnati to lock up that game. And I think that he probably went into this saying they're not going to get hung up on age. They're going to recognize that I'm every bit as good as CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, and I'm going to get 33, 34 million and 100 million guaranteed, and or whatever it is he's asking for. And I think that the fact that the team doesn't view it that way is for a guy like Terry is like, wow, you don't know what I went through. You have no idea what I went through in this organization. You don't, it's business. You can't get hung up on feelings. You just can't. Feelings and emotions, they start wars and they start religions, but they're not necessarily great all the time in a business negotiation. Stay on hold. We'll take a few more calls on this. Appreciate you guys staying on hold. I'm not going to leave you hanging. We're going to get to everybody. Terry McLaurin, thoughts on the press conference, level of concern after listening to Terry yesterday. Whose side are you on, the team side or Terry's side? We'll finish up the show with what happened yesterday, and that is a deadline on the stadium agreement came and went without the city council voting on the RFK deal. That's later on this hour. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. So our HVAC system was giving us some problems recently. My wife does not mess around when it comes to being comfortable. I'm sort of the same way as well. We called Foley Mechanical, and Dan Foley came out himself and dealt with it directly, which, believe me, is impressive. Dan owns 100% of the company. It's not a franchise. It's not some big private equity firm. That means he controls the quality from the equipment to the people he hires. And his team, they're professionals, skilled, and sharp. Foley Mechanical is full service, heating, air conditioning, hot water, and boilers. And they're the go-to for older homes with radiator heat, a real specialty. They work across D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, and they proudly install Amana HVAC equipment. If your system needs help or you just want it done right, call Foley Mechanical. Tell Dan that I sent you. You can go to FoleyMechanical.com to learn more as well. All right, 301-230-0980. Terry McLaurin dominating the conversation. Are you concerned now? Whose side are you on? Anything else having to do with the press conference yesterday? Let's go to Mark in Largo. Mark, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. I would only hold on an hour just for you because you're my buddy.
I appreciate it, Mark.
Go back and forth, but it's the truth. Look, I'm on Team Commander fans. That's the other thing that I think we need to put here, because there's no winner or loser with the team or Terry. Okay, Terry needs a team, and Adam needs Terry. Okay, let's just get this out here. Adam needs Terry because if Adam doesn't get this right, we got this situation that's going to happen on Friday, which you will probably talk about tomorrow or Friday when Ben Standing comes on here at this time and hour with Trey Amos and all the second rounders that haven't signed in that's going in the NFL camp. And it started this Saturday with the Chargers. That's going to be an issue that what I think is probably preoccupied.
What's going to be an issue? Mark, what's going to be an issue? Trey Amos isn't coming to camp?
Trey Amos has not signed his contract.
Right.
And none of the second rounders in this year's draft.
Yeah, right. Okay. That's what I wanted to make sure you're talking about that.
Yeah. That's going to be an issue coming this weekend. But here, look, Terry's going to get signed. I think that's going to happen. If it's not today, if it's not in 2 weeks, it'll be in August. It'll be all right with the world. Terry will be fine. Terry will be here. He will be here at least 3 years.
Why are we even talking about it then? Right?
No, it's not that. It's not. I'm saying it like that. It's not. I'm saying it like that, Kevin. It's just that I do think to a certain extent, Terry coming open about it. I kind of agree with the caller that called and said he was a little older than you, because I'm in that same generation too. I mean, look. I love Terry. I felt like they didn't handle it well. I mean, you could have did this within 5 minutes and just sit this off. It didn't have to last an hour. I mean, really, I totally agree with you. It was poorly handled. I mean,
you're talking about the press conference yesterday. Yeah, it's not Terry's fault. It's not Terry's fault. Somebody's got to manage that.
But whoever did it was, oh my God, it was awful. And I just think if we all see where we're coming, he's got everybody on his side, and even you agree with them. And I think Terry should be paid, and I think he's going to get paid. But I also think this is also pressure on Adam Peters as well, too. Because, look, man, you don't want this front office to be labeled like the Nats front office. By God, we don't want that.
Right.
Yeah.
They get a little leeway here in this first contract negotiation, but it's a tough first one. Thanks, Mark, as always, for your call. It's a tough first, big contract negotiation because it's such a popular player and he's so important to what they want to accomplish now. It'd be one thing if they were in a rebuilding mode. I mean, you'd even be more on team side because it's like you're going to pay this guy. By the time we're going to contend, he's going to be 33 years old. We're contenders now. So I'd like to see him get it wrapped up, but I do trust in their ability to handle this. I do. And I think there's a lot about this that we probably don't know right now. Ross in Tampa. Ross, thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, what's going on, Kev? What's good in the hood?
Hey, Ross. How are you?
I'm good, man. Listen, I've already mentioned my bias towards Terry. We grew up in the same area of Indianapolis, and I love to see him playing for my squad. But I'm Team Commanders, man. You know, this is the first organization, the first front office that I've seen handle things competently. So if they don't get it done with Terry, then I'm not gonna like change my views or change my opinion of anybody in this situation. I'm on the same field as you. I do think it's gonna get done. I'm not worried about it. I didn't realize how long that press conference ran until I was like on hold. I didn't get on the line yesterday. I was like, oh shoot, he's still going. They needed that. I don't remember his name, Kev. You can probably tell me. But he was the black PR guy for the organization. He was always screaming "No means no." He would have had that thing over in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, but Tony, that's Tony Wiley. But Sean and his group were not there. This was not a team PR event. They would have obviously kept that to 10, 12 minutes, and Terry would have moved on. Yeah, it was his agent and maybe somebody else there.
Okay, and I'll leave. But I'm not worried in the slightest. Let's see what happens preseason with the contract, and then we'll, like Stanek always says, you know, once training camp starts and nothing's been done, then I'll start to ring the alarm. And
yeah, I'm still there too. I'm still there too, Ross. I think something's going to get done here in the next 6 days. I really do. You know, I think deadlines make deals. I think, you know, these last few weeks tend to be, you know, when mini camps and OTAs and all that is over. This is the one period in which, you know, front office guys and coaches get a chance to actually take some time to themselves and their families with some vacation. So yeah, and look, doesn't mean they can't negotiate a deal from wherever they are. I have kind of a hard time, I'll be honest, and I don't know that I've said this yet. I have a bit of a hard time believing that if Terry's group is reaching out, that the team's ignoring him for the last month. That's not what he said. He said we haven't had any contact with the team for a month. It takes two to tango there, you know, and maybe the team said on their last conversation, look, this is what we're offering. This is it. I don't know. There's a lot we don't know. Thanks, Ross. Appreciate it as always. Let's go to Paul. Let's go to Paulie. Paulie, go ahead.
Big guy, hell to the W, man.
You gonna yell at me today?
Yeah, I'm just warming up for the season. I wouldn't tell
All right, what do you got?
One, man. I wouldn't tell you on this one. This is why I ain't have a problem with the press conference, because we all wanted to know what was going on. So
my God. Well, we found out in 10 minutes and then had it repeated over 20.
That's cool though, but Terry's a very charismatic guy. You know what I mean? I didn't mind.
He's very what?
You know, but,
charismatic?
Yeah.
I don't think he's charismatic. I think he's thoughtful. I think he's very thoughtful, and I think he's smart.
Well, it depends on how you think of what charismatic is.
That's true.
You know
it's very subjective. We have a different opinion, apparently.
Right. I mean, I'm just saying I could have listened to him talk longer. I like the interview. But anyways,
you listen to me talk too long.
Right.
It's your style. It's what you like.
You listen to me talk too long. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I do.
Look,
you're getting too long right now.
Terry, man.
Tell me why you're Team Terry.
I'm Team Terry because there's no question or mystery about what Terry is to this team or to where his rank is in the league when it comes to wide receivers. There's no mystery about it. We know where he's at and where he's not. We know he's not Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson or even Tyreek Hill kind of class. So we know where he's at. And for it to be this late in the game, you know, a week left for training camp, I don't want to go into training camp and we still talking about Terry McLaurin's contract. He doesn't want that. That's why he had this press conference yesterday. Like, the man wanted to get a deal done and go to work. Let's get ready for this season. This style, this 49ers style, I don't think it has worked too well for the 49ers in the past. I mean, you know, he's not Brandon Ayuk. He's not out here being a clown and all on TikTok.
That's true.
Or leveraging with, you know, he's handling it professionally. But look how long it took Brandon Ayuk to get in the sync before he got hurt. Same thing almost happened with George Kittle when he did the same thing with George. He didn't have a good season. And I think a lot of that is, you know, look at the record of with the players that they've done this to, and look at their seasons in that coming season. And I think a lot of it has to do with mentality, man. Mental, getting ready for the season, ready to go. And I think it's just, you know what he is. You know what he is around the league, and furthermore, you know what he is to the team. So it shouldn't be that hard to come to find a happy ground. I'm pretty sure Terry probably thinks more of himself than he should. But it shouldn't be hard to find a happy medium and get this man paid, and let's start the season. We should be starting the season talking about a damn contract.
It's better than starting. It's better than starting a season wondering who the quarterback is, and whether or not a congressional investigation is going to take place or not. These are the conversations. One of the reasons it's so heated is that we know that this could be a very good team and a deep into the season contender. We haven't had a good contract debate in a while.
So let's keep that good harmony, man. I mean, this is one of your top players on the team. I can see if he was a knucklehead or he was a guy that was hurt all the time. Terry's always available.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's
Let's
true.
go, man. Hell to the W, big guy.
All right, I'll talk to you later. Appreciate it. Let's go to Anthony in D.C. Anthony, go ahead.
So, Kevin, out of that top 10 list, do you know that only Malik Neighbors and Garrett Wilson for 1 year? Let me rephrase that. Out of the top 10 list from ESPN,
right?
Everybody on that team, it's everybody on that list except for Malik
Neighbors, right? And Garrett Wilson.
Neighbors and Garrett Wilson for 1 year has had or has currently either a solid number 2 receiver and or a top 15 quarterback. So you said earlier that St. Brown was better, in your opinion, than Terry. So
I do think that, but I think it's close. But I think we'll put it this way: the age, I would take Amon-Ra St. Brown right now. But I fell in love with him when they were bad in his first year, and he was just an incredible route runner and caught maybe 100 balls. I'll look it up as a rookie. What did he catch as a rookie?
So let me lay this out for you.
Yeah.
So St. Brown is strictly a slot receiver.
Yep.
Terry plays inside and outside.
True.
So you're going to and all the receivers on this list get force-fed the ball.
He had 90
So
catches in his rookie year, and that team was not very good. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. So you're going to tell me that if the teams were reversed, you still consider St. Brown a better receiver than Terry?
Yeah, I think St. Brown is a very tough check. I think he's a very tough check.
Quarterbacks that throw the ball late, flutter balls.
I get all that. You asked me my opinion. I understand what Terry's had versus what Amon-Ra's had. I know Amon-Ra's also played in an offense with Ben Johnson as the coordinator the last couple of years. I loved what we saw from Terry. It's very close. But where are you on, what else did you want to say about so, by the way, don't you think it's surprising that Neighbors, actually, it's not that surprising to me. What do you think of Neighbors?
Oh, Neighbors is a hell of a receiver, but again, I said all of those receivers get the ball force-fed to them. If you did a search if you did an AI search, you would see multiple receivers that had more targets than Terry since Terry has been in the league. Nobody on our team has ever been force-fed the ball.
Why do you think that is?
Quarterback.
I think that's part of it. Why do you think that's what it was last year? Maybe quarterback too, for a different reason. But maybe Terry just isn't a force feed wide receiver.
I mean, anything is possible. I guess my main point is the comparisons are kind of what's the proper word? For lack of a better word, the comparisons are kind of null and void because of team dynamics. Yeah. If you took Terry and put him on any of those other teams,
yes,
I would think you could have comparable statistics versus if those players were on our team during Terry's run, they would be nowhere near the production that they are right now.
I know. Malik Neighbors, with no quarterback on his team last year, caught 109 balls. Terry's never sniffed 90. Never. Okay, that's fine, but that's because he is a force feed wide receiver. All right, with no quarterbacks, Terry never came close to that in receptions. And by the way, he missed games.
Would you say that Daniel Jones is a better quarterback than anything we had before?
I actually would. I actually would, believe it or not.
Exactly.
But he didn't have Daniel Jones for all of those games last year, right? I mean, the Giants played multiple quarterbacks last year, didn't they?
Who was
anyway,
Neighbors?
They played Drew Lock. They played Tommy DeVito. They played Tim Boyle. Played a lot of different quarterbacks. Daniel Jones only played 10 games last year before they traded him. All right, Anthony, thanks. Appreciate it. I want to get to some of these other calls. Let's go to Lap in D.C. Lap, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Kevin? Thanks for taking my call, man. Good show as always. I'm definitely with Terry. I mean, but on my knock is him being just a receiver. I don't think he gets separation enough for me. I've been saying this for years. He makes the tough catch. He's good out in space. You know what I'm saying? Of course, he didn't have really good receivers. You know what I'm saying? But he's been consistent. So pay that man his money, as Rounders say, the movie Rounders. But I think they need to get a deal done with this. I wish we would have had another first round pick. We could have probably got Neighbors or Thomas, man. That would have been nice for Jaden to play with one of those guys. But hey, we in the situation we in, and I guess we'll see. Isn't Debo's on the last year of his contract too, correct?
Yeah, 1 year deal.
Kevin? Okay.
Yep.
1 year deal. Okay. So I guess we'll have to see what happened, man, and hopefully this gets resolved before the season. I mean, before training camp, because it is dragging out, man. But pay that man his money. He worked hard. He deserved. I know it's a lot of factors.
I think they want to pay him his money. The issue is they don't want to pay him what he believes paying the man his money means. And what we just don't know where it is. It's probably somewhere between 28 and 34. Somewhere in that range. Yeah. You brought something up, Lap, and I appreciate the call as always. And that is this. Tommy brought this up on the podcast yesterday. If they had a sense that this was coming, they didn't prepare for it properly. Meaning, they drafted a receiver in the 4th round. That's it. They did sign Deebo Samuel to a 1-year deal. They signed Deebo Samuel, but Deebo's not going to play the position Terry plays. He's going to be more of a weapon. Look, Deebo at his best, has been a pretty highly ranked football player and under the wide receiver, or in the wide receiver category. Let's hope we get that player this year. I think it's going to be with Terry, but if it were without Terry, they desperately need it. But, I don't know that the team necessarily expected this, and you may want to be critical. You could be critical of the team for not anticipating perhaps a contract issue with Terry, other than to say he's under contract for another year. He's going to play for us, and we control him with the franchise tag opportunity in 26. But, we talked about some of the receivers. They weren't going to have a shot really at McMillan, but guys like Ibuka and the guy from Missouri, Burden, Matt Golden, who went to – did he go to the Cowboys? He went to the Cowboys. No, he went to the Packers. The guy that I loved, Kyle Williams, who got drafted in the 3rd round. A couple of other guys. They drafted Jalen Lane, but he's – you can't count on a 4th rounder to step in and fill that void. What do they think of Luke McCaffrey? I don't know. Luke McCaffrey, I thought at times last year was a very good route runner. Ball just didn't come his way. Maybe they're expecting him to be breakout this year. I don't know. There's a lot in play here, which is why one of the things I said at the very beginning of this show is I don't know from the team standpoint if this is style, meaning what Peters was a part of in San Francisco. These deals always got done towards the regular season rather than towards the beginning of training camp, or whether or not there's true skepticism on the part of the team about the player's age, what the player wants. Jackie and Frederick, thanks for holding on. You're going to be our last caller. Go ahead, Jackie.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for taking my call. So
Sure.
I'm Team Terry. And the reason why I'm Team Terry is because I can see if Terry wasn't producing year in and year out. I sit back and I look at the big picture of the whole big picture, and I look at things like, who's to say he couldn't be or can't be a 12 or 1,300-yard receiver? We just really tapped in his potential last year with a proven quarterback. The previous years, you had people like Eric Bieniemy who didn't even want to throw to the guy. And then people had to start.
Well, he threw the ball 70% of the time. So, and yeah,
and
it just was not very well constructed.
He threw it that much. He threw it that much, but really not the Terry. I don't know. But anyways, it took people like you guys to say something last season when Cliff Kingsbury wasn't even getting the ball to Terry until the second half of the game. So I look at things in a different light. I look at who knows what potential he really could have had he been over at a Buffalo with a Josh Allen, or had he been somewhere with a Kirk Cousins. So I just feel like I don't know what the contract is trying to be, but I feel like they should pay him. And to the caller who said something about Quinyon Mitchell, if you watch the first game in Philly, Quinyon Mitchell had safety help. Okay, yes, he got an interception in the playoff game against Terry, but he had help. He didn't kill Terry the way everybody trying to make it seem like he did. And I'm not taking nothing away from him, but to me, hey, Terry, this team will not look the same without him. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks for taking
Appreciate
my
the
call.
call. I think, you said something, and I jotted it down. You said, the way we look at him. Maybe we look at him, or some of you look at him, just in a totally different way than the team looks at him. Like, you mentioned something, and I remember a lot of the calls in certain weeks where you've got to come out and you immediately have to throw the ball to 17. You got to get them involved right away. It's got to be a part of the game plan. You can't, go a full half without him touching the ball. Maybe they don't see it that way. Maybe they don't see him as a force feed wide receiver. We talked about this during the season. I remember Legler calling me up, after he and I had a conversation, and he said, I'm sick of Kingsbury not force feeding Terry. That should be number one on the list. Number one game plan is get the ball to 17 as much as possible. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to get the ball to 17 as much as possible, but I don't think that they view him in the same way that the Giants, with Tommy DeVito and Daniel Jones and Tim Boyle and others at quarterback last year, Drew Lock, view Malik Neighbors. It's not the way Minnesota looks at Justin Jefferson. They don't see it the same way Cincinnati sees Jamar Chase. They don't see look, there are other teams that spread it around too, and Philly's got a lot of options. But I don't think that's the way they view him. I don't think they view him as a 12, a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 target a guy game. Why? Because they view him as a step below great, elite. He's a really good receiver, and he's really good for the culture that they've tried to create. I want them to pay him, but I don't want them to overpay him. We'll finish up with some of the news on RFK yesterday. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com.
All right, the MLB All-Star Game last night ended in a historic fashion. The AL stormed back after being down 6-0 to tie the game at 6, sending it to a swing-off. Kyle Schwarber won it for the NL with 3 home runs on 3 swings, and this is the first time it has ever happened in an MLB All-Star Game. And Wizards Summer League, they lost to the Philadelphia 76ers by a score of 74-58. Bub Carrington, Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George, Trey Johnson, and Will Riley, all DNPs due to a coach's decision. A.J. Johnson led the team with 20 points. Second-round pick Jameer Watkins had 10 himself. Tonight, they will take on Ace Bailey and the Utah Jazz at 10 p.m. on ESPN. Meanwhile, the Mystics, they fall to the LA Sparks 99-80. Shakira Austin led the team with 16 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. Kelsey Plum and the Sparks had one hell of a night with 4 players scoring 15 or more points. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1 and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the streams and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
So when the mayor and Josh Harris back in late April announced that they had come to an agreement, a term sheet, a deal on the team moving back to DC to the RFK site, it's still depended on the city council passing this particular deal, a $3.7 billion project, $2.7 billion roughly the team putting towards the project, $1 billion that the city would put towards the project. There was a July 15th deadline for exclusive negotiating, meaning that the city council essentially had until yesterday to pass the deal and make it official, or the team could start to negotiate with others, Maryland, Virginia, probably more Maryland. Doesn't mean that they will, but that was a key date. We've heard a lot about how the city council was not going to get this done by July 15th. They did give preliminary approval to the 2026 budget earlier in the week, including $1 billion set aside for the stadium, but it left out language that would have made the term sheet legally binding between the team in the city. So they're going to have a separate bill and a separate vote on the stadium. And Phil Mendelson, the council chair, has said that they plan on, taking their time off in August, and they may not get to that vote until September. We'll see. He's also said that the city council and the team have been talking, and that the meetings have been, quote, very productive, pleasant, and constructive. We're working well together. The council's trying to move toward a positive vote on the stadium, closed quote. So we'll see. Some are concerned with this passing of the date, but I think when we had the mayor on recently, and then we had Mark Ein on recently, I think that there was an expectation that they weren't going to vote by July 15th, especially when it was not included in the 2026 budget in terms of the term sheet. All right. One other thing, too, that came up during the show today. We had a caller who mentioned, Trey Amos hasn't been signed, and a lot of the second rounders from the draft have not yet been signed. There's a reason for that. There have only been, at this point, as of yesterday anyway, only 2 second rounders have signed contracts from this last draft. The reason for that is that the 2 second rounders that signed, and they were Carson Schwessinger from Cleveland, and also Jaden Higgins for the Texans. They signed fully guaranteed deals almost within a week after the draft. Fully guaranteed deals for second rounders are now a part of the most recent CBA. So now all of these other second rounders, given that 2 have already signed fully guaranteed contracts, they want fully guaranteed contracts. And that's where the rub is, because not every team is willing to give them fully guaranteed deals. So out of the 30 players left, out of the 32 players selected in the second round, 30 have yet to sign their deals, and teams now are reporting, rookies are reporting for training camp around the league. Washington's rookies report on the 18th, so on Friday. So that's the second round story. All right, I've got a few days off. I'm going to have some days off between now and the beginning of the season, but I'll be off the next 3 days, tomorrow, Friday, and Monday. Denton will be in for me. I love when Denton is doing the show. He'll be in for me, and so listen, and Max will be here as well. Or are you leaving also?
I'll be holding down the fort for the next couple days, and then I will be on a vacation starting next week. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'll be back for the first day of training camp on Tuesday, July 22nd. All right, Chris is up next.